put the sound in. Dude, I don't think like your description. Oh no, never mind.
Get those tin cans on your head. Hey guys.
Episode 70. 70. 70 on the T dot. Final Fever Podcast.
Hey guys.
Hey. It's back.
Action-packed episode today. We have a super special guest coming right up, but before we get to that,
Hopefully more action-packed than that race.
yeah, hopefully more action-packed. That hungry race. But it was great to go out to see it again at Betty's. We want to thank again to all the folks at Betty's.
Yeah, lots of new faces. That was fantastic.
Yeah,
Wow.
Yeah, that was what a good response. And I didn't even put posters up for this one.
No?
around Betty's, but they were calling me concerned because they thought that we weren't gonna show up. But no, yeah, thanks to everybody that both Daves that show up and everybody else. Good to see everybody, even though it wasn't maybe the most exciting of races.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? I'm kind of glad that we didn't do this show yesterday because I was like out for the count by the end. Like, maybe went too heavy on the bone shakers.
That's what happened. I was hungry at the Hungarian race.
Oh yeah.
I don't think I ate enough.
Yeah. So I guess without further ado, I guess we can now turn to our guest. Right now is.
Special guest here today, Kurtis Robinson. Hello.
Hello.
Curtis, you there?
Good afternoon.
Hello.
Good evening.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm just going to turn you up a little bit. Keep on talking, bud.
Hey,
Hey, man.
how
How's
you guys
it going?
doing?
Good. You can hear us clear? You can see us? Just making
Yeah,
sure
I
that
can hear you guys fine.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. One quick thing, we do apologize in advance to our audio listeners and viewers, and Curtis, to you too. There is always a bit of a lag because we're doing this over broadband, and the connections aren't always the best. So we do apologize in advance if we got any technical difficulties. Stay tuned. We will try to sort them out. But other than that, Curtis, how are you?
Yeah, I'm very good, thank you.
Oh,
How are
actually,
you guys?
we should probably introduce you. So our guest right now is Kurtis Robinson, like you said, the writer of a popular article on the finances of F1 called
The battle for F1's billions.
that I believe was your last year paper at a university,
It was, yeah.
and it went quite well in the end.
Yeah, it went pretty well. I got a first for it,
That's
which was in the top rank of marks. So
That's amazing.
Yeah, that's exciting.
yeah,
Congratulations,
I was
dude.
quite chuffed with that.
And from what we understand, like just the writing of the paper from the beginning was a bit of a journey, and the good people of the internet had a hand to play in making it the success that it was.
Yeah, well, it started off in my second year of university. It's the module that it was for. Started 2 years ago, and that's when we had to start planning it and get our ideas for what we were going to write. And I'm quite a big Formula One fan, so I thought, well, not many people in my course were. They're all doing football, so I thought I'd do Formula One.
Nice.
But the only problem is that you needed at least 3 first-hand interviews with people with knowledge on the subject that you're writing about.
Right.
And obviously with Formula One, it's hard enough for established journalists to get interviews anyway, let alone a random student from a university. So
A
it was pretty hard. And then
exclusive.
so I went on to the Formula One subreddit, because I know the community there is excellent, and I thought maybe someone there could have some contacts or could point me in the right direction, and they did. So I ended up getting 3 pretty good interviews, I thought. And
That's amazing.
Yeah, looks like you used them well.
Yeah, it was a great read. Despite what the grammar people of Reddit had to say.
I don't really have much choice about how I wrote it. That's just what we were told to do, and that's how we were taught for 3 years to write short sentences. Because for online reading, it's if you don't capture or keep their imagination going for like, if you write a big long paragraph, they're going to get halfway through it and just give up. So we're taught to write short, punchy sentences and paragraphs to keep people going. But
100%, I understand that. I mean, it's not that I necessarily like agree with that mentality, but everybody does it.
The world has zero patience anymore.
Yeah, it's not the way literature was supposed to be done, but in this day and age, it has to be.
Do you look at any news site, motorsport.com, et cetera, that's how they're written.
Yeah, even I think the older, more established names like the Motorsport magazine, like they're probably the only ones out there in terms of F1 that are still pumping out like nice like literary pieces like consistently. Because otherwise, like everybody's just trying. I mean, I don't want to say like to get clickbait, but you gotta get people's attention. That's a challenge.
Joe Sayward type of guys. Writing pages and pages.
You talked to the man himself, didn't you? You had a Skype conversation with paddock sage Joe Sayward.
I did, yeah. Well, that actually came from the Formula One subreddit. Someone said to give him a shout, and I've sort of read his articles before, but it wasn't someone I thought about doing. And then I messaged him like that day, and he came back to me straight away and was like, "Yeah, we'll Skype 2 days later." And then 2 days later, we were Skyping him, and we spoke for about an hour or so.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that's cool. Great.
That must have been an experience in and of itself to talk to Joe.
Oh yeah, it really was. Like, he was like really kind. He was so helpful, and gave me pointers on for my career as well. Obviously, I want to sort of head out into the world of Formula One journalism. He gave me pointers how to start that, and as well was giving me a great interview and give.
Well, he would know. He climbed all the way up to being editor of Autosport for Formula One.
Yeah. And he said he started off camping in the Grand Prix, getting like a press accreditation, just camping at the circuits and just bullying his way through, to get interviews and that. So
that's awesome, man.
It must have been hard to pare down an hour interview to one little quote.
Yeah, it was really hard.
Yeah.
Trying to write it back because just listening over to the interview I recorded down and just trying to find, pull 3 or 4 quotes out of it that I use for the actual piece. But
yeah,
it's worth the hard work.
No doubt, man. No, it is a beautiful piece, and we have like lots and lots of questions about that, and hopefully like we can just talk about more in depth and in general too. But before that, I'm just curious because actually before we started on the show right now, we're talking to this Irish guy, and he's also like he's interested into motorsport journalism. And he mentioned something that's really interesting and interesting to me at least. And he said that for him, like in the future, it might be difficult because he was hoping that there would be no trouble for him going to school in Britain, because Britain is basically the place for motorsport journalism. And thinking about it, like it's probably true. So you're lucky that you had that. Well, that you are from the UK and have that access. But like, what are your thoughts on that? Like the fact that like basically like if you are an aspiring journalist out there that wants to write about motorsport, you pretty much have to go to Britain.
Yeah, I'd say so. If you're like aiming for the top publications and papers, but there's still each country has their own press.
For sure.
So they could write for, but yeah, obviously, all I think the main websites are Autosport and all that. Like, they're all UK based and write the UK style, which is all taught over here. So I'd not say but obviously, yeah.
but what got you personally interested in pursuing that field? Like, were you like at one point woke up when you were 14 and you're like, all right, I want to write about F1?
No, it wasn't. I always wanted to be a pilot. An airplane pilot was my, as a kid growing up until I was about 15, 16, and then I found out you have to be really good at maths, which I wasn't. And I've always been a massive sports fan, with Formula One and football being my main sports, and I'm not very good at playing football. I thought I could talk and write about it, and then as well as other sports as well. So I just decided, I didn't know, after I finished high school, I still wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I ended up going travelling for a bit and still undecided. And then I decided I saw a sports journalism course at university, and I thought that'll do. That was my way into it. It's basically just a decision at one point in my life. It wasn't like a big thing I was building up to. It only sort of came on late.
But I mean, like, I'm sure you would have by this point have gone to a few races and experienced the passion for F1.
It's going to sound bad, but genuinely I haven't.
Really?
No, over here.
No Grand Prix yet?
Obviously, £200 or so for a ticket.
Yeah.
I was never able to afford it as a kid. I'm not from a very privileged background, so I could never do it. But then I went to the British Grand Prix this year. It was my first ever Grand Prix.
Oh, how was that?
Oh, great.
Oh, it was amazing. Yeah, I loved it. And it's so much. You don't seem to notice how watching on TV, you don't think it'd be good to be there because the cars just zoom past and that's it. But
right.
Being there, you just can't describe the feeling. You can feel the cars as they go past. You feel the vibrations and the atmosphere and everything was amazing. And
It's a bit of a different experience, isn't it? Like when you're watching it on TV as opposed to actually being there. You don't have those play-by-play calls that the TV can offer. Instead, you sort of have to piece it together yourself.
And it's because you get to see the the individual battles that aren't normally on TV.
Right, yeah.
Sure. You can see them each lap just closing in on each other as they go around, and it's always good to follow.
Yeah, that was cool. I mean, I guess Mike, you pointed this out when we went to the Canadian Grand Prix earlier this year, and it's that I guess we were doing something and I didn't realize that's what I was doing, but we were sitting there and we were just counting seconds in between cars to kind of because you had to pretty much place this story together as it was happening in front of you,
right?
Which was awesome.
Do all that yourself.
Yeah.
Unless you're in front of one of the big screens.
Not even that. There wasn't that much, or at least the coverage and the commentary. The
commentary wasn't the greatest.
Yeah, no. I don't. Who does the commentary for at the track for the British Grand Prix? Is it do they just play one of the Sky feeds or BBC feeds, or is there?
I think there's just a guy in a box
guys.
somewhere doing. I wasn't actually near any loudspeakers. I couldn't hear who he was doing.
You got to be right in front of a speaker.
Yeah, I wasn't actually there as I was actually doing some work for. It's my girlfriend's godparents own a company that sort of do VIP packages to Formula One Grand Prix and Le Mans, other things like that. So I was just there helping them.
Oh, sweet.
Oh, okay, cool.
Getting paid to do that, but then I got to go watch the race, which is pretty good. So I was sort of at the back somewhere, but then there was a place on the first corner I managed to go watch the race from, but I wasn't in front of any speakers, so I couldn't hear what was going on, but I could see from the screen.
Did you get to ride the Ferris wheel?
No, I didn't.
I didn't even notice that there was a Ferris wheel there until this year. With so many years of going.
It's not quite the Nürburgring roller coaster, but
yeah. So you started you got into it at school. You wrote this paper that you got to talk to some great people and they pushed you in the right direction. The people have read it, and now you brought it back, and I read it, and it is really quite good. Have you gotten any calls now from any motorsport magazines?
Unfortunately, I haven't. No, I have been trying to put myself out there. I've been emailing different websites and publications and stuff with a link to it and going, "Hey, read this. See how good I am."
The internet says so.
Yeah, I haven't got anything back unfortunately yet. But I'm gonna keep trying.
Yeah, I'm sure just keep pumping them out.
Well, I know this podcast in particular will just push you over the edge.
Oh man! Oh, you just wait for the 2 or 3 extra views you're gonna get as a consequence of being on here. No, but okay, all right. So let's delve right to this, because I think this with the article, and I do recommend anybody, because so you posted 2 versions of it. One that was a summary of the other, basically, but the longer version is. It's really good for anybody that's interested into F1, because you really go through a bit of the history and a bit of where the whole where this era started, which really was the outcome of the FOF070 wars, and and how just after so many years of the model doing what it's supposed to do, we're probably getting to a point now where it's breaking down, and and it's a bit of a bleak picture, but it's a bit of a hopeful picture at the same time, because there is it's clear that there is a way out. But right now, like, it does seem to pretty much anybody that knows and has any perspective on this, that it's gonna collapse. Like, if it keeps going the way it's going, isn't it?
Well, yeah, that's what some of the experts are saying. Tiff Nadell, in particular, they said the bleakest outlook of them all, saying that the sport is going to collapse if it doesn't change.
But I don't think he's wrong at all in saying that.
No, it could very well do. Yeah, with the teams that are struggling, the back market teams to compete, like, who may end up with only 4 or 5 teams that can viably compete in the sport, and then they may be having about like the B teams or having a third car, or what's being said before in the past. So
Yeah, I'm glad that
it
third
could
car
go bad,
thing.
but you think cooler heads would prevail, and you think they would sort of come to some sort of compromise. to
Yeah,
keep the
man,
sport going.
but honestly, like, when I was 12 years old, I thought that adults knew what they were doing, and they don't. Like, so, like, I think it's irrational. Like, it's more irrational than you would think, to think that these people know what they're doing just because they're the ones that are doing it.
Yeah.
Doesn't always come with the job, and it's everything around them is changing way too fast, and I think it's visible elsewhere in the world. Like, any other, like, situation right now that's, like, stuck in a rut, or like in a big trouble, like, you can tell it's pretty much because of that. They're failing to adapt, or to, like, move with the times, to, like, respond to, like, the necessities of the now that are changing drastically every day. Like, if it's in the current, so you touch about, like, how the current system works, where basically everybody has to agree on everything, or a big majority of them, and of course nothing's going to change, because the big manufacturers, the engine manufacturers right now, have a lot of power because they supply most people with their engines, and people need engines to race.
Yeah,
So if
definitely, yeah, it's kind of a bit like politics in a way, where you get the the MPs, or I'm not sure how the Canadian
we have MPs here too.
politics. Yeah,
Yeah.
like, and you get like the
Very
lobbying,
similar.
and they lobby each other to make them vote a certain way, and I think it's kind of like that, where the big teams, they just tell the small teams, vote for this, otherwise we're not going to supply Avengers anymore.
Yeah,
So it's a bit kind of not corrupt, but it's not fair, should we say?
Yeah, a lot of
Yeah.
like favoritism towards like all this. I mean, if you look at Ferrari and the older teams, it's like, nah, it's gonna be our way
yeah.
because of who we are. Thanks.
Is that a solid argument? Is that a solid argument in today's day and age?
No, in a fair sense, no, but you can see why, because they are the big teams, the most established teams, and they do bring a lot of fans to the sport. Like, you see every weekend, there's, no matter what country, and there's always a massive Ferrari flags in the ground, and like in the stands, and Mercedes and McLaren also have a lot of fans, and they do bring in the money, and you can see why Formula One are hesitant to do anything that would upset them.
Right.
There's somewhat, like, as the teams need to figure out, those teams need to see that what's good for themselves is hurting the sport in general, and they need to see that and think, actually, we should probably change it. Otherwise, they could end up going down on the sport themselves, if it all goes to pot.
Through your research, I mean, did anything sort of like stick out to you as a solution to something, to one of these problems, like how they could either change how much money people get or make it a little more fair?
I think they should start enforcing a cost cap, or like this certain amount they can spend on development, or something like that, because it's just not fair. Where the big teams, they've just got an infinite amount of money. The big teams can spend how much they want, like the GDP of a small country, just trying to
Right.
research the best thing for their engines, and then the smaller teams have got nothing, and they just can't compete.
Yeah,
if
Mercedes
there- if
dropping
there's
a
a cost
third of $1
cap where-
billion.
If they have a cap where they can just spend, you only got this much, that's all you can spend on sorting out your car for this season. I think they still, even if they got the best like scientists and technicians and everything, so they'll probably still get better performance out of their cars, but at least it won't be as big. So the gap in the field shouldn't be as big. But that's only theoretical, I'm not a I'm not a technician or anything, so I don't really know how well it works like that.
Something interesting happened this weekend, though, and there's been a bit of talk, nothing finalized yet for next year, though, about somehow electronically equalizing the engines to within a 1 or 2%, 1.5% or something of horsepower. But in the top 8 finishing cars, there are 5 different cars this weekend at Hungary, 5 different engines. It's interesting. Mercedes first, then the Renault, then Ferrari, and then the McLaren Honda, and then the Toro Rosso, which is running a different Ferrari engine last year's. But at the same time, though, the 7th and 8th finishers, Alonso and Sainz, were 1 lap down. Ooh. They were both lapped. But the top 5 different cars are 5 different engines after this race.
How is that possible? Mercedes,
yeah.
Well,
the 2 Mercedes, then a Red Bull, then a Ferrari, Vettel, then Verstappen. Yeah, these are the same car, though.
Yeah, I know. So where are the 5 different engines? I think you're...
Mercedes.
Yeah.
There's a Renault. There's a Ferrari. Yeah. And then here's a Honda. Yeah, and then here's a Ferrari with a 5th engine.
Top 7, you mean?
Yeah, but I said that in the top 7.
You said at the top 5.
No, I said there's 5 different engines in the top 8.
All right. Anyway, but yeah, no, that's
the top 8 finishers. There's 5 different engines.
That was. I think that was just a great race for Fernando Alonso.
After the rest of his weekend, he actually finished 7th position in every session of the whole weekend.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Go Alonso.
Yeah, but anyway, 1 lap down. It's kind of.
That's like 1 race, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't really say a whole lot.
This is being pretty typical though. Like 7th, 8th, 9th place, the cars are lapped, and then at the bottom there's 2 and 3 laps down. So from 18th back, all the cars are 2 laps down. And Button wasn't even allowed to finish, or able to finish.
But here's the thing, and this is something that Kurtis, you touch on.
Always kind of
on your argument. On basically F1 is that like there has to be because the constructor championship exists.
Yeah, there's always a dominant car. There's always cars that are 2 laps down.
At the end of the race, yeah.
So I don't know.
Okay, now I'm interested in what Kurtis said because so you touch on something that the cost cap, that is something that Max Mosley and in the article had proposed, and I think that Max Mosley gets a lot of flame because of his disgraceful exit of F1, but he's still saying some stuff that just plain makes sense. Like,
yeah, definitely, yeah, I have to agree with him. There does have to be something along the lines of that, of a cost cap or something, just making it more even. Because there's nothing in there at the moment that's making anything even. So there's just the smaller teams cannot compete in any level, like whether it's financially or mechanically or anything like that. They just can't compete.
It's funny because these guys recently got me into Formula One, and my observations of it is that like F1 it's a motorsport, and it's about having the best and the fastest car to win. But then that philosophy conflicts with almost of like trying to put in competitiveness within it while the sport is struggling, and it's kind of like a snake biting its own tail, where it doesn't it will never solve itself. It'll always just keep on devouring its own tail until it reaches the head. So it's always going to be difficult to balance something like this in Formula One. But
well, in the argument again, or at least I guess because they've tried to do that before and for some sort of a cost cap, and you brought this up too, Kurtis, that the problem with doing that is that the teams that voted or keep voting it down because they keep saying it's unenforceable. How could you possibly enforce that?
Yeah.
It's tough. It's tough because you like at one point do you stop counting like whose contribution and putting like $1 or pound amount to that, because if you're talking about Mercedes, like yes, they have like the team and the factory and whatever, and like that costs them an amount of money, but they also have all the support of their factory back in Stuttgart and all of the Mercedes engineers worldwide that work like even in just like a little spring or whatever of the engine. That like so how do you quantify that? Which is, I guess it would be their main argument, but like that kind of stuff it falls thin because yeah, you could have that, and maybe that'll give you an advantage, but it wouldn't be like at the deficit of the rest of the sport. Like a cost cap does make sense, and like yeah, you could sit around here all day arguing that, oh, but things are complicated and everything is more complicated than you would think. It doesn't mean that simple solutions don't affect it, and the cost cap would be an achievable simple solution that they probably like wouldn't have to do much about to implement, and they can you know what, they can at least try to enforce it, whether it can be done in practice or not. Who cares? Let's just give it a shot. See how it goes.
Yeah, exactly. We can't really say. Obviously, they've probably got the best minds in the world trying to work out, and this is just from the average fans. We're from the outside looking in, but sometimes you need that perspective to look out from the outside and think this is what's wrong. You guys can't see that because you're too busy worrying about other things on the inside. And I think they do need to take into account what the average people say, and the people that aren't affiliated to the sport in any way who just watch it. And I think they should take into account what they think and what problems there are. I'm sure they can come to some agreement or compromise between everyone.
Did you notice any of that during your interviews or the people you were talking to, that they're sort of inside of this world of F1 and it's almost difficult to see it any other way than sort of being within it?
Well, the people I interviewed, there's Kevin Eason, he's the motorsport correspondent at the Times. So he's within the media world. He's not in like the corporate structure of F1. Same with Joe Sayward and Tiff Needell. They're all to do with the sport, and they're all there every weekend, but they're not affiliated with the business itself. Unlike Christian Silt, who I interviewed, who at the time I didn't know when I interviewed him. I thought he was just a writer for Forbes, but from what Joe Sayward told me, that he is in Bernie Eccleston's pocket, to quote himself. I'm not saying this, but and yeah, he's affiliated with Bernie Eccleston, and he was saying it's like there's nothing wrong.
You do get the feel that like in your article when you quote Silt, it's like, yeah, we know Silt said it, but those are Bernie's words.
yeah, exactly. I generally didn't know how close he was to Bernie at the time. When I spoke to him, I just thought, oh, this is good. This is one side of the argument. This is good for my piece. But then,
but
he was a nice guy, and he helped me out.
It's great that I did find that very cool that you included sort of both sides to that, especially when talking to Christian Silt, and like you can see that like where they're coming from with some of their arguments, like when he's defending how they go to like all these different places and like whatever, and like they have the money and whatever, but you can see that argument. Like you can probably like make that argument all day. It doesn't mean that it's sustainable. Like you go to where the money is, but like to whose detriment? Like you got to think about that. Like have you noticed it, man? Like in being in Europe and in the core of F1 the following, I think Great Britain is like right at the beating heart of motorsport, and some of the most enthusiastic fans of the sport. You must have noticed a decline, and overall some people just getting pissed off and stop watching.
Yeah, definitely. Like when I was little and watching it growing up, like there's a lot of people I knew used to watch it and used to be big fans. Like even like my dad used to sit down and watch it with me, but now he doesn't watch it. He gets bored. Like I have it on, he'll just be like, oh no, it's too boring. That's same with my friends. I'm one of the only ones of my friends that watches it. No one else sort of really cares for it. And I've seen a decline. Like now, if you mention it to someone who's not a fan, you say, "Oh, you watch F1?" They just go, "No, it's boring. It's boring. Why would you want to watch that?" Because all they see is just the same two cars out the front every time, or the same person winning every race. That's all they see.
You brought up Eason there. What's his name? Kevin Eason.
Yeah.
And something that he said, or like that you quoted him for later down in the article, really I think like captured to me like what one of the biggest like problems in F1 is right now. Like when you, so he said, I'm just gonna quote here. It's quite difficult to see a future for the sport. It doesn't really know if it's the new tech of motoring or the old entertainment industry of noisy V10 engines. and now, but that actually, like, up to that point, like that really speaks to me in like saying, because there is no clear future, there is no clear direction of like the best way that I can think of it is that, you know, with the big companies or whatever, like whenever you join like any company of any size, they like one of the first things that you do is like you read about the company, like when they like the HR person gives you a stack of paper about like the mission of the company and the vision of the company, or like where are we going, this is the company's culture, yada 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 yada, and based on that is how they do everything they do.
Right.
It seems like F1 is missing something like that. Like there's a lack of
Direction.
of direction of that vision. What's the vision? What's the mission? Yeah. Like, let's sit down. Nobody seems to be too worried about. Let's sit down and define what is Formula One.
They don't explain the motors at all. It's not about the technology because they keep it all as secret as possible. Right. We know the engines are incredible, so they're not pushing that side of it. They're not the noisy V10 entertainment anymore. They're going back to the fat cars with big tires and everything next year.
But
mechanical grip.
What's the purpose? All these changes just look like they're just rolling the dice, see what's gonna happen, with like trying to figure out, like, yes, what's F1, and if F1 is the pinnacle of motorsport, what does that mean? You know, what does F1 have to be to actually like have like a true claim to that?
Yeah, nowadays, yeah, because it's different now. People don't see it as that. It's arguably that it is still, but people don't see it because nobody understands what it really is.
I think the owners need to make a decision. Like, how are they going to run it? Are they going to run it as a business where they're just going to try and maximize the amount of profit, which I think is what they're doing at the moment. They're just trying to maximize the profit out of everything. You know, you're going to run it as a business, get as much money out as possible, or do they want to run it as a sport where you want to bring the best entertainment, you know, please the fans, please the crowds, and then if you do that, you bring in the money anyway. Like the more people get watching it, inevitably you're going to get more money.
Why do you think that they don't understand that? Because that seems clear to me and clear to everybody that I speak to about F1 that has any knowledge of it, that they could probably be still making tons and tons and tons of money if they just listened to what the fans wanted.
In one word, I'd say greed. At the moment, you know, the revenues are still going up, even though there's all this talk, you know, the declining viewers, declining attendances, but overall the revenues have been going up year on year for the past
because of pay
5
TV
years or so. Yeah, because of pay TV, and that's what the owners see, like CBC and all that. They know nothing about F1. They were not affiliated in any way before they bought it out. They've just seen, here's a profitable sport, let's just buy it. Mm-hmm. That's what they've done, and the revenues are going up, and that's all they care about.
Yeah.
This is from what I got from my research. It's just, this is an assumption I'm making. I don't know this for sure, but it's just that's, you know, they've seen their profits going up. They're happy. Why change anything? Like, if it's not broke, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, kind of thing. You know? But I think they're scared of it. If they change it, revenues will go down. They're going to start losing money.
But it will for a little bit, and then it will pick back up once the audiences pick back up. You have to you think so, but from their view, they think, you know, any loss is they're
bad.
Thinking quarter to quarter. They're not even thinking year to year.
Yeah, season.
They want to please their shareholders. That's all they're worried about.
Now we've talked a bit about, and there's like always rumors going around about F1 being sold. Mm-hmm. Did any research you seen? Did it suggest that maybe that's what they're looking to do?
There was talk. I spoke with Christian about it. Where this is when I spoke to him. This was I think it was back in December 2015. Mm-hmm. So it's a bit old now, but there was talk of like a Qatari company coming in and buying it.
Oh yeah.
And then I spoke to him about that, and he was like, "Well, there's talks, but nothing solid yet."
There the Apple rumors last week.
Yeah, and then the Apple thing coming out. I'm not sure how strong those rumors are, or how.
Yeah, I don't know. At the start of the season, Bernie came out and said that there were two major interested parties and that due diligence was happening, but that was already 3-4 months ago. One of them was at the time I don't remember the name, but it was the owner of the Miami Dolphins NFL team.
Oh yeah.
I don't know who that was, but They're some sort of billionaire.
It's funny because like the state of F1, they wouldn't really, if they were actually looking to sell it, they're not going to make these huge fundamental changes and maybe lose value in Formula One. And it just doesn't make any sense for them to change like to streaming services or anything like that. They're trying to me, it seems like they're trying to make it look as pretty as possible. And like, here you go. Now you can set it for the future. Let it go like a dove. You know what I mean?
Oh! By the way, this is all freshly painted, but there's all kinds of mold behind that wall.
Yeah.
It
looks nice.
Yeah,
it's breaking though.
Going back to your article, man. Like to that, like I think it was like Tiffany Dale. He said like they should just let it go bankrupt, and then buy it back from CVC for nothing. And then start fresh. Like that's another solution that I see. I mean, if they actually let that go, and like the fanhood would probably suffer for a little bit, but from the ashes it shall rise.
They're not going to do that. Let me just throw this in. Stephen Ross is his name. The last news from this though came from October 2015. There was a rumor that Stephen Ross, who owns half of the Miami Dolphins, and him and a consortium of Qatari investors were looking at $8.5 billion valuation on Formula One. But that was October. Now is the last news from that. So I guess that melted away.
That's what I asked Christian about, and he wasn't too sure. Well, he didn't want to disclose anything to me. So.
But that's been around like basically since the failed flotation on Singapore. There's always like every handful of months there's like a new story of like
this story is 8 to 9 months old now, so
buying F1. There's a new person buying F1. There's at one point Sky was rumored to like be interested in some shares. How bad would that be for the sport?
Yeah.
I mean, I love Sky and I love their coverage, but
a little bit of a conflict of interest, maybe?
To say the least. Do you watch Sky or Channel 4?
I watch Sky. That's a bit, yeah.
Nice.
Have you seen any Channel 4? Have you watched any of it this season?
I was around a friend's. I was watching the qualifying on Channel 4 this week. I think it's the first time I actually properly sat down and watched it properly. And I was quite impressed. I quite enjoyed it, to be fair.
Yeah, they're not bad, right? It's just for me, I watched a little bit this week and a bit last week. It's just the familiarity, really. Like they're good still. It's just like they're not the voices I'm used to. That's all it really is. It's just a little throwing off. But like Karun Chandok's really good. He knows a lot of his like history type stuff. He knows a little facts. I don't really know who. Yeah, he was a driver. Boy, he's good at the commentary. But like I don't know, the other guys, I don't know, just don't know them as well. Just already been watching these other guys for years now.
Yeah, I've grown up with Martin Brundle, like always offering his side of the opinion. I quite enjoy it. So
it's got to
watch just with Martin Brundle on Sky.
It's got to be Brundle. The commentary has got to be Brundle. He was away for those 2 races, and like I was like, man, I miss Brundle.
Like apparently we said last week, those 2 races was the first that he missed since 2008 sometime.
Wow.
For 8 years he missed 2 races.
That's a crazy living, man.
That's pretty crazy.
That's gotta take like all of like your efforts. Does that scare you? Does that not scare you that like maybe you'll get to like be like part of like the F1 circus, and then all of a sudden you have to like have
then all of a sudden you're
life.
part of the circus.
Yeah. Then that's it. You're stuck there, and like you have to follow all the races, and like your family's never gonna see you.
Yeah. Well, right now that seems like an amazing prospect. I love travel. I love experiencing new places, but yeah, I can see like if you have a family and commitments at home, then it must be a bit annoying like having to go every other weekend.
Where's home at that point? You know what I mean? Like,
well, exactly. You live out your suitcase, don't you?
Yeah.
Looks like next year's only going to be 17, 18 races anyway, so we'll see.
Do you think that they'll ever not have the British Grand Prix?
Sorry?
Do you think that the British Grand Prix will ever come under fire? Like, will they ever not have it? Because right now, we're talking about, and we've been talking about this in recent weeks a lot, how there's just, like, even more than before, like, we hear, like, about a new track, a new old track, like, in danger of, like, not renewing the contract. Italy, like, who knows what's gonna happen with Monza? Who knows what's gonna happen with?
And Imola and San Marino.
Is
Now
this-
there's a big fight there.
Yeah, is this gonna be the
between
last German Grand Prix next weekend? Like,
Yeah,
is it?
Might be. Nürburgring's out of business.
And it's the GPDA, or no, sorry, in Britain is the British Racing Drivers Association, or whatever, though, the BRDC.
Yeah.
They're the ones that own or manage the British Grand Prix at Silverstone, right?
Yeah.
And they don't receive any help from any level of government. It's just all ticket sales.
No, yeah, it was all ticket sales. Yeah.
It's not
They're
sustainable.
looking to sell. They're looking to sell the circuit. Jaguar might come in and buy it as a test circuit for their production vehicles.
Yeah, but what if they don't? Like, so then,
Yeah.
so then what? Like, so
That's
what's
might-
next?
might-
The British Grand Prix is not gonna happen.
Maybe.
That's ridiculous.
I hope I never see the day where that happens, but you don't know in this climate of Formula One, especially with Bernie's. You know, he'll take any chance that, you know, in North Korea come with a right price, he'll send it there. Of course he would. So it's, yeah, I hope it never happens. But
Oh, this rich country with a lot of rich history.
You get a picture of him whispering in Kim Jong Un's ear.
but Kim Jong Un will be in like the driver's room at the end, congratulating them. So.
Oh,
They're
yeah.
gonna give him a car.
Yeah.
He's gonna race.
Oh,
And everyone will just have to go very, very slow and let him win.
one of the support races at least. Oh man,
Oh no.
that's it. It's too crazy, man. You mentioned also in your article that's it's what's happening, and it's sad that it's happening, but yeah, like we have tracks that are being shed in the benefit of like new fancy shiny Tilkedrums, but they are just that. They're not like Korea didn't work.
Yeah.
In India didn't work. Istanbul, they had to shut it
Turkey
down.
didn't work.
Like,
Turkey, it's not gonna work now.
yeah, Turkey's definitely not gonna. Or who knows, man? Because Buddy's beheading people, so yeah, that might give him more pull with Bernie.
Baku worked once at least.
But that was the other boring race of this year, though.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
so how do you
Yeah, I don't know.
balance that? Like how do you balance like keeping the traditional tracks, the traditional European tracks in place, the ones that matter at least, versus like expanding the market to like reach new people?
Well, that's the thing. Like they're charging astronomical amounts to host a race, and it's not fair. Obviously, these new tracks coming from these countries, the government are willing to throw money at it just to get some sort of world event in their country, so they can show off. Hey, look how good our country is. Like, we've got no problems here. Like, hide away the poor people for a weekend as the world comes and watches us.
Or Civil War.
Yeah.
Yeah, like none of that's happening here.
No, what? No, what?
So they hide that way, and Bernie will take any money he can. Like, they're kind of just throwing absurd amounts around, and he'll take it. But it's the historical identity of Formula One is so strong, and that's what what it's drawn upon. Like, it's been around for for over 50 years, and I think for it to lose the tracks such as Silverstone, Monza, Nürburgring, it'll be a travesty.
Canada.
Yeah, Canada.
There's a quote here this morning now from the mayor of Montreal, Dennis Cordair, saying, not to worry, we'll have some more information soon. This is from formulapassion.it. Apparently they called the circuit to try to buy tickets, and they told them that we don't know if the Canadian Grand Prix will take place next year. So you can't buy tickets yet.
Uh-oh.
This magazine called them. And
They are ridiculous fees, and whereas really they shouldn't. I think the only
I think
track-
there's a little corruption there, maybe in Montreal, that the money, like the federal government was supposed to pitch in for that 40 million, build the proper facilities. They haven't built anything in the past 3 years now.
Still, man, like
It's good enough,
You're
though.
talking about like with what some of these tracks are being demanded to pay. It's like almost extortion.
Yeah,
Like it's it's almost extortion. And
tens of millions of dollars.
yeah, you just
For 3 days.
you're gonna like try to like get as much money per each one of those deals, because that's what Bernie's job is. But like you have to think that too many of those deals, and all of a sudden we're just gonna end up with 1-2 races in Europe, 1 race in North America, and the rest elsewhere. And then are people still gonna watch?
Right. It's like pissing in your fishing pond. Eventually it's just going to be pee.
I know this is a touchy subject too, but 3 weeks outside of the Formula One Grand Prix, maybe it's 4, is the Formula E doubleheader in Montreal. So if this race doesn't happen, I don't think anyone's going to be too worried. Like I'd rather watch the Grand Prix. Don't get me wrong, but that's filling in the gap now. And in a major city worldwide for F1 racing, for Grand Prix racing, Montreal.
Well, and that's
we're hosting a doubleheader for Formula E,
and that's the next thing.
3 weeks apart.
Right now, like F1 could make all these outrageous claims and ask the people in power could ask people,
threats.
Threats, just these threats, and ask people for all kinds of outrageous shit because they were the one thing that everybody around the world watched. But I don't know, man. I think that right now, if you were even mildly curious about motorsport, there's so many options that are so easy to access, way easier to access to F1, that are you risking alienating that entire section of the population just to keep this stupid status quo going? What do you think? In Britain, I know that you guys have or over there, there's just a lot more motorsport in general that people have access to way easier. The touring cars, the World Rallycross, that type of stuff. Is that picking up to the detriment of F1? Have you noticed?
I haven't really noticed too much. No. The British touring cars is always on free to air terrestrial TV. Yeah, it's always on a Sunday afternoon, and it's good to watch. Anyone could just be scrolling through the channel and stick it on and be like, "Oh yeah, that's really good. I enjoy that," and then watch it next week, kind of thing. But with Formula One, whether it's on pay TV, no one's going to scroll across and watch it unless it's on the Channel 4 one. But that's only half the races.
Yeah,
that's the kind of thing I'm missing out, is that it's not there for the casual person just to stumble across and see. And be like, actually, that's quite good, just because it's behind all these paywalls, and it just seems a bit too out of reach for a
That's how I found out about Formula One, just flicking TV when I was a kid.
Yeah, there you go.
Like, whoa, this looks so cool, and I just watched it. Yeah.
I wasn't. Yeah, I wasn't. I'm not gonna. When I started to get into F1, or really get into F1, I wasn't gonna pay anybody to watch it. It's come on.
No.
I was barely watching a couple races here and there, years past. So why? What's the motivation to pay? I just as easily could download it, or go see it at somebody else's place or something.
Yeah.
Some might call me a super fan now. I still don't want to pay for it.
Yeah, not what they charge anyway.
No. Yeah.
But it's okay. Now here's one thing, because I think that like I was saying, your article really hones into what some of the biggest problems are with F1. But what do you think that us as fans that we can do to kind of try to get this going in the right direction? Do you think there's you're right there, Mike? Do you think that there's anything that the fans can do to either help the sport go in the right direction, or at least help people get into F1 despite all this that's happening?
I think we need to make our voices heard, let them know this is what we want. We want not everything free, obviously they're not going to just put everything, but at least some more access to the sport. They have a YouTube channel, but it's not that good, is it?
No.
They need to.
Wait, they have a
the
YouTube
NASCAR
channel?
They post highlights in the race straight away.
Oh, yeah.
Boom.
Yeah.
I think the Formula One needs to follow that. Just it keeps us happy. We see an incident, we can watch it straight away, and other casual people can just stumble across it on YouTube and be because I end up watching NASCAR highlights. I don't even really watch NASCAR, but I watch the little highlight videos they put on just because it looks cool. It's just little bits of the action that I like to watch. I think Formula One needs to do that.
I watched the Toronto Indy on YouTube last week. I stumbled across it. I wasn't looking. It just came up on the suggestions. I threw it on. I wouldn't have never watched it otherwise.
But that's kind of the equivalent. That's like today's equivalent of like flicking through channels. It's like that little sidebar on YouTube.
Comes up on YouTube.
If
just
more,
keep scrolling.
If more F1 stuff was just allowed to be there in the first place, like I guarantee you, like viewership would pick up right away.
Like any video now, like unauthorized video, it just gets taken down straight away. And I can see why they do that. I know there's copyright laws and everything, but.
But if they're not doing it themselves,
they need to start producing more content themselves. If they're going to take other people's away, they need to do it themselves. I think they're starting to do that a bit more now. I think.
Yeah, because right now there's really nothing. Like if you go on the subreddit, which is really nice, because like people post these little streamables, like right after the race, you're like, oh great, I want to see this, I want to discuss it, I want to talk about it. But if it's constantly getting taken down, you're like, well, I guess I won't talk about it, and I'll just go home and watch something else.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah, even us, for sure, using clips legally on this podcast, just talking over stuff, whatever. We've had this show taken down.
Yeah, we've had a couple episodes taken down, even though we were playing by the rules, and still like they won't allow it.
Yes, we're not broadcasting the race. We're talking about a few seconds of the race, and they pull down the whole 2 hours of us talking about their sport. It's silliness.
They're so out of touch with the modern day. That's not going to take any money away from them. If anything, it's going to garner more interest in it.
Yeah. So the response for us is we just don't use any clips anymore, at all.
Well, we have to. We've been
legally
driven to that. But it is interesting. Exactly what you say. Yeah, it's not taking any money away from it. It's, if anything, like adding to the interest. I think a popular case study about this, or a famous case study, is what happened after Monty Python decided to release they just got tired of paying, apparently they got tired of paying their lawyers or whatever to take YouTube videos down. So they were like, all right, we're just gonna post all of the clips from all the seasons available on our YouTube channel. And since then, their DVD sales have actually gone up. So since they did that, their actual sales of material have actually gone up because people are sharing and talking about it, and that's something
send it
funny
to their friends.
Yeah, absolutely. That's oh man. Hopefully, like you said, cooler heads will definitely prevail. At least that's the hope.
We hope.
And if they don't, then the sport will burn to the ground, and there's still hope. From what I got from Tiff Nadell there.
I think they just need a fresh input. It's all run by 50, 60-year-old men that are sort of a bit out of touch with the modern day. They're all still in the days of the 70s and 80s where it's just trying to maximize profit, and they need to get a fresh in. They need someone young to come in and be like, this is how you market it to the modern day audience. Everything's internet based.
Yeah. That guy who owns the Miami Dolphins is 76 years old. Bernie is 84 years old.
It's all these gray-haired men in suits. If only they would listen to us.
Yeah, okay.
All right, man. Anyway, I guess we won't take much more of your time. It's already almost been an hour. Thank you so much for stopping by the show. Great article again.
Great article. Hope you had fun. We had fun.
Yeah. A lot of fun interview. Again, I recommend to all of our listeners and viewers, we will be putting a link to the battle for F1's billions.
Keep it up, man.
In the comments. Yeah,
write some more.
Hey, let us know what check in with us later if you end up landing any significant position.
Yeah, no, I definitely will.
And if you don't too, what? Anyway, thanks a lot, man.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
We'll talk later and do another one of these in the future.
Yeah, no, it'll be a pleasure. Definitely, I've enjoyed myself. You guys have been great, and thank you very much for having me on.
All right, man.
Thanks, Curtis.
Cheers.
See ya.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye.
What a great guy.
That was fantastic.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Well, should
so
we cut it? Take a little break and
Let's
we'll
come back.
be right back.
We'll come back with the rest of the show for all the live viewers. Shouldn't be more than 5 minutes.
All three of you guys.